the solution for business leaders is to disrupt yourself. You should be the first to embrace these technologies.
Is very helpful as an academic when you step back and you look at patterns after they've happened. But at least it provides some sort of courage for us to make the change.
Thank you, Ben, and thank you for having me, ZIBS. I call it like there are 3 levels of innovation. First one, easy to understand, we call it incremental innovation. That's why everybody wants to carry a latest version of iPhone. But many people don't know the difference between iPhone 13 and 14, but they want to have 14. So what ultimately doing is we are increasing the product life cycle, we're coming up with a little bit better version. So that's the first level of innovation, the incremental. Second level is what I call the efficiency innovation, which is taking the cost out of the system. So you need to make sure that everything we do in a way that there is no waste. So then the third category of innovation is a disruptive innovation. So disruptive innovation is what you're talking about, this technology coming in, which is totally going to change the way we do things. Kodak engineers invented the first digital camera, which would disrupt the entire previous the photographic technology. And management response is, don't tell anybody. Don't tell anybody. Because if we release digital camera, it's going to kill our business. Because we're not going to sell the papers and the chemicals. But imagine the mindset goes in. Because you think if you hide this, nobody will learn it. But other companies are going to learn this anyway. So therefore, the solution for business leaders is to disrupt yourself. You need to disrupt yourself before someone else come and disrupt you. Right? Yeah. Then you are the winner. So I think the things like ChatGPT, I mean, you should be the first to embrace these technologies. How do you provide products and services to your customers? It's time for us to embrace these technologies and do things better on how we do things before someone else disrupts us.
Well, that was a little moment there of disruption I hadn't anticipated. As business schools, I think we find ourselves in an unusual position in the last 3 years, actually going through a disruption, and I know this will come up later on in the conversation. But for once, we've actually been at the forefront of these disruptions, and will continue to be. Obviously, with ChatGPT, but the whole change that we've gone through in terms of how we deliver our learning and teaching in the last 2-3 years, it has been an example of how we manage to cope. Well, that's unusual. What we are quite good at as academics is standing back and spotting patterns as well. So reflecting on and gaining that courage, and how do you provide the evidence, let's try this, let's see how this works, let's make sense of it. Deep down, I remember being an economist before I started moving into marketing, and one of the interesting economists that I look at is Alfred Marshall, who wrote some of the best economics textbooks in the 1890s, would you believe, and was at that in early part of mixing physics and biology into economics. And one of his ideas from biology is that nature does not take a leap, which he's vaguely Darwinian, I guess, but nature does not take a leap is very helpful as an academic when you step back and you look at patterns after they've happened. But at least it provides some sort of courage for us to make the change.
140 years ago, a Professor Warren Johnson was teaching in university, and he wanted to adjust the temperature in the classroom, so room temperature in the classroom. So he invented thermostat. Before that, there was no thermostat to control the temperature. And then he built a company called Johnson Controls. And imagine the Johnson Controls history that started with inventing thermostat. Everyone today talking about decarbonization and sustainability. 40% of carbon emissions are coming from the buildings. But everyone talking about electric cars, solar arrays and wind farms, but 40% of carbon emissions are coming from the buildings. And there is no decarbonizing the world without decarbonizing the buildings. And China has these dual carbon goals to carbon peak before 2030 and carbon neutrality by 2060. So you can see. So the question is, how do you do that? So our purpose change on adjusting the room temperature to the sustainability. So I think to add to your point, it's all about how that technology is helping on a bigger purpose. I think many companies, let's say for example, you are polluting the environment on your factory waste. So what you do is you give it to a supplier to do it. So that way your company not doing it. I mean, is that sustainability? That's where the technology comes in. The technology, the ESG, will help find out the entire end-to-end value chain. Once you digitize it, you have the visibility. The digitalization helps companies, business leaders to have this end-to-end value chain visibility that we're bringing in. And it's not about within your four walls, it's about the entire value chain with the digital connectivity.
I think what we underestimate is the anxiety that this can cause for people in the heat of the moment. The need of public policy, and often lots of examples of public policy not being up to speed and not perhaps addressing these different forms of anxieties that people can face, which can be debilitating in many different ways. And of course, the effects are unequally distributed. So one of the things, again, I have still a bit of the work that we're doing in Glasgow. We're really interested in productivity, but we're interested in productivity in its public sphere as well as its private sphere. So I think if we're looking at questions of the different productivity challenges that we face, quite often we underestimate the impact of social wealth and social well-being and public health around some of these questions that people face.
Jobs are going to require different level of skills. Some jobs are going to get eliminated. I don't think we should do jobs that a machine can do. Why do you want to do a job that a machine can do anyway? You're never going to be as good as a machine. Because machine doesn't have feelings. Machine doesn't complain they are tired. Why my peers are getting more salary than me? Why my boss loves someone else than me? My family problem, this problem. So nobody will hire you if what you're going to do is the same job a machine can do. Then the challenge, what we need to teach the future generation is to continuously learn, upgrade your skill sets, but creating a vision, working with the team to make that vision achieved. I mean, these are hard goals that only humans can do.
One of the challenges I guess we faced is different degree programs have different styles of learning. Some are far more engaged in private practice and business case, and others are much more involved in regulation and government organisation. Some are much more technical, some are more case-based. And I think what one finds is that the more agency one gives to the, for example, the teaching teams, the programme directors, the student bodies, the more these diverge perhaps in their embeddedness in practice rather than their embeddedness in the organisation. So I think a lot of it is that question about organisational learning and realising that when one develops greater devolution and greater pushing out of agency into real action and real decision making, so a whole divergence of practice is bound to happen despite one's best efforts at standardising. So how does one learn from that, and how does one really provide time in people's lives, for example, by generating newsletters, then we can reflect more about being a genuinely learning organisation, because we've generated lots and lots of trials and experiments that we need to capture. I'm not sure that we're adapted to doing that yet, but that would be what certainly I'm aware of, where people have had to think and adapt to particular local circumstances or contextual circumstances in the last couple of years. How have we captured the learning from that?
I think every company, every CEO pretty much said when the pandemic started, workplaces will never be the same again. People will not come to work. People are going to stay at home with the pajama pants and the shirts on top, because only see the top half on Teams and Zooms, right? So that's going to be the working style. But every CEO, if you talk to today, they realize they were wrong. Because human beings are social animals. We're social animals. We are designed, we are made to work with people, be with people. Our efficiencies are higher when we emerge as an organization with one mindset, as an organizational mindset. Where does the organizational mindset happen? Not in the boardroom, not in the meeting room. That's what happens when you have lunch with your people, when you have coffee corner talks. That's when you're building the bonds which ultimately create the culture of an organization. Discussions you had yesterday and this morning we were having tea together, how can you replace that? That's where we talk things off camera, right? The real friendly human bonding way, that's where the creativity comes in. That's where the innovation comes in. So yes, we need to learn how to work with people. If you want smart people in your team, because the smart people are not easy to work with. But they don't listen. Okay. Smart people don't listen to you because they have better ideas, right? And imagine you have 10 smart people, right? How do you put together? That's a challenge, and that's what we need to learn.
Bring us our team here. We're smart enough, but can we work together?
Absolutely, we can. Absolutely, yeah.
But I think you have a point there about the more agency that you're comfortable, the more if you want to disrupt yourself, then the self is the organization, I guess. Yeah. So who are the disruptors, and how do they both disrupt and coordinate simultaneously?
Right, exactly.
Because smart people can be hugely disruptive.
Absolutely.
And that's part of the benefit. So again, how do we learn when obviously we've had a lot of discussion recently brought on by the pandemic again, of different working environments, and also how one copes with neurotypicality and neurodiversion. And we know that diverse teams are far better and far more helpful, and they also create more trust and engagement with an organisation if people can have a sense that whatever these leadership roles are, if they are leadership roles or action areas or agency areas, there's going to be lots of different ways of doing these. Mm-hmm.
I mean, I went to university 25 years ago, and a lot of things I learned are obsolete now, except the very basic fundamentals. All the tools are obsolete now. I've got better ones, right? So therefore, learning tools, learning how to memorize is not going to be very important, right? I think it's getting into the value system, creating learning organizations, how to work with people. I think that's going to be very crucial, building, really getting back to the basics of humanity.
Experience sharing is important. Again, there's a bit of a theme of what I'm saying here in answer to a lot of these questions. If we're really good at something in business schools, it's providing safe places to trial things. You know, we are doing things with a very strong sense of imagination about how this is also being done very, very soon, or if not at that moment elsewhere in the world, in a corporate setting perhaps, or a policy setting, as well as in a business setting.
Now let's open up the floor to questions.
Do you believe that we should allow this new wave of AI and ICT-driven innovations to continue without adequately measuring and considering the potential unintended consequences?
I think we need to ask that question. I mean, if internet was never invented, are we in a better place than today? If computer was never invented, if cell phone was not invented, I think we can debate around it. I'm sure everyone has their own opinion around it. But I like to choose that we are in a much better place because our connectivity has improved, our productivities have overall improved. But is that technology doing something bad? I think that requires the policymakers and academia and institutes and business leaders. We need to continue to have this debate.
I think there need to be appropriate supervision or regulations for the new technology. In this background, what do you think the most thing we need to concern about in a study on the new technology?
One of the things, you know, if we're talking about our responsibility to train and develop, we also have a responsibility to develop and authenticate new knowledge. I mean, not necessarily ChatGPT, but I mean, this concern has been around for longer. As human beings, we might miss stuff. Yeah. I think is really important to the validity of our establishing the base from which we say something is our work. So in some respects, it's almost a stimulation to our imagination. And but your supervision here is, okay, you know, what's the glitch? What's been designed in? Why is GPT-4?
It is maybe difficult to use this technology in a way that it helps for society. I mean, what does it even mean to help a society? Also because it's all about business. It is all about profit most of the time. And I like to believe that how people act is influenced by how they perceive the situation.
Sustainability is not about greening the world, right? I mean, let's go back to the village days, cave age. World will be green. World will be green, right? Let's go back. But are you willing to do that? No, because you need the comfort and a safety of what the world has brought in with the economic development. That's why you attend business school, because you want a better life. Everybody wants that. So the question is, how do you do that without harming the environment? How do you do that making the society a better place? So, and then when I become a manager, I thought my job is to make sure I remove the barriers for people. I help them, give them resources and help barriers. But then about 10 years ago, I realized how wrong I was. That's not what leadership is. I realized that real leadership is actually making people better. I'm building people. And now I realize, why do I do that in my company? I do that in society now. So that's why I'm working in partnership with the universities, and I'm sharing my experiences, because that helps. It's a part of my social responsibility. So we all have that responsibility. As a responsible person, you're helping the society a better place and not harming the environment. I think it's not a philosophy.